Welcome to the Good Growing Podcast. I am Chris Enroth, horticulture educator with University of Illinois Extension, coming at you from Macomb, Illinois, and we have got a great show for you today. It is announcement time. Drum roll, please. We're going to be talking about the Good Growing Grow Along Part 2. Strikes again, back? I don't know. We'll come up with, we'll workshop some titles here in a bit, but I'm not doing this by myself. I'm joined, as always, every single week by horticulture educator Ken Johnson in Jacksonville. Hey, Ken.
Hello, Chris. Should be the Grow Along Strikes Back.
Yes, that has a little bit of a negative connotation in my head, because when the Empire struck back, it didn't go so well for Luke Skywalker, but you know, he survived. He did lose a hand, but I don't want to lose any body parts this year, Ken.
Fair enough.
Okay. And of course, we are not doing this without horticulture educator Emily Zweihardt up in Milan, Illinois. Emily, welcome back to the show.
Hi, guys. I'm very excited to have the return of Good Growing.
There you go. The Grow Along, the returns. The Grow Along.
Return of the Grow Along.
Yes. No? Oh, there we go. See, that movie ended much better. Yes.
Better.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Everything got all tied up nicely in the very end. And we don't talk about how those movies were changed in the late 90s to not include the best Ewok music I've ever heard. But anyway, I digress. Don't talk to me about Star Wars, because this will become a Star Wars podcast.
The Good Growing After Dark.
Yes, at a galaxy far, far away. Mm-hmm. Okay, well, I guess instead of talking about science fiction, we should talk about plants. So what we are going to do for the show today is, one, we are going to, if you're a new listener, if you have not participated with the Grow Along in the past, we'll talk about what that is. And then we're going to dive into a few of the specifics of the different types of plants that we will be covering this year. So Emily, could you give our listeners / viewers a kind of a brief overview? What is a Grow Along? And, you know, why do we choose these plants that we've chosen?
Oh, I'd love to, Chris. So the Grow Along, the original, it started last year. We wanted to engage our wonderful viewers and readers of Good Growing with growing plants, right? Like we're all united around this passion for plants. And we have talked many times about how we like to grow unique things. We have engaged with master gardeners and community members who are adventuresome growers as well. And so we thought, why don't we do this together? So the Grow Along was born, right? We decided that we were going to offer, last year we offered 6 different plants, seeds for starting, that folks could sign up for. They could register online. We would ship you the seeds, and we would just grow them through the season together. There were a few surveys that we conducted just to gather some information as to how it was going, if people had questions. We checked in with each other with a couple of different podcasts throughout the summer and the growing months, and got to kind of share successes and failures. Some of us had some epic failures last year, and that's okay, because that was kind of the point. We were growing new plants that some or all of us had never grown before. We are in different areas of the state. We have different kind of soil types and growing conditions. And so we just got to grow alongside of each other. And I think the most fun part was hearing how our Grow Along participants fared. So we decided we would do it again. It was so much fun. We're going to change up the species that we're growing. We changed a bit of the parameters. And so I like that we refined a few things, and we're going to expand our palette, if you will, for growing options. And we'll see how it goes again this year.
Yeah, so things have changed. I guess, Ken, last year we were like direct sow only, but Ken, how have we changed things this year now for our Grow Along?
Yep. So we still have quite a few direct sow, but we did include some things that you will need to start indoors. That just kind of expands the potential plants we could have. So there will be some. Obviously, you don't have to pick them, but if you have the capability of starting seeds indoors, there will be some that will require that. We also shied away from the large seeded items because those are expensive to ship. So everything's going to be smaller seeds now. So not that
But
it really
not too
affected anybody,
small.
but
Well, but not too small, right? We had a few problems with some of the Mizuna from last year too, was teeny tiny little seeds. So I don't think we have anything that's like microscopic this year either. We're finding that Goldilocks zone.
Yes, so I think we have more opportunities for folks to experiment with maybe doing a little bit of seed starting on your own. So if you haven't done seed starting, you want a couple unique things to try with, this could be a way to do that. And so we even have a seed starting podcast episode out there. We could probably even link to those, or we could make a whole new one this year. So and trialing some of our new seed that we will be putting out in the garden. So there's going to be a lot of ways that that we will love to interact with our fellow gardeners, our growers here across Illinois and even throughout the Midwest here. So in the last year's Grow Along, we had people from multiple states participate. And so we really do focus on Illinois, being an Illinois land grant institution, but we aren't going to necessarily draw the line. I mean, if you're in Hawaii, maybe, we might not ship out to Hawaii. I'm sorry. We'll see what kind of approval we need for that, because there's a pretty tight curtain around Hawaii when it comes to agricultural products, because the invasive species that take hold there, they don't let go very easily.
But
So,
if we did somehow get approval to go to Hawaii, that could be an interesting podcast location.
Yes. If anybody has any tours of the Hawaiian Islands that you could use a group of 3 roving horticulturists to talk about, that would be great. Yeah. Take any of that.
So we'll do registration like we did last year. I want to just talk about that before we get distracted by all the plants. So we'll do a registration because we need to know where to ship the seeds to. And so folks can go to the link that's in the show notes. We'll have registration open until March 7th because some of these plants are need to be started early. We want to get them out to people in time to start them indoors before then the growing season hits. And so we're going to bump up that date just a little bit this year from when we did last year. So March 7th, mark your calendars right now, or just put it in your head if you're driving and listening to this. Please don't write anything down. Just be safe. But it'll be on our online with the link below. We are going to add a location in for donations. If anybody wants to help support the program, we are making this available to everybody. So there is no charge to participate, but we do incur a bit of an expense for purchasing the seeds. And so if anybody wants to donate, that'll be a new option you see on there. Certainly not required to participate, but you'll see that on the registration as well. So.
I wouldn't donate.
You wouldn't?
Now that's reverse psychology I'm using right there.
It is not required. I really want to emphasize that. Like, it is not required. But we do have generous, community members too. And so just providing the option, appreciate what anybody wants to do, whether donate or just participate and provide feedback. Can we talk about that for just a second? Like, we do the surveys, we share some of the podcast stuff. Like, I loved the comments that we got last year. People were just sharing successes and challenges, and like the camaraderie I thought was lovely. So before we go into next year, I want to thank people for last year. It was probably like the most fun thing of my summer, and I had a lot of fun last summer, but like seeing those comments was it was a real joy.
Yep, I would agree. And there was several people make comments about wanting more growing information on them. So when we send out the seeds, we will include more information on how to grow stuff as well. So,
but we are learning right along with you. Just keep in mind with that.
Yeah. Okay, with that, should we talk about what we're going to be trying to grow this year? And then I guess ultimately some of them will be taste testing again. I think that's still the plan. I hope it is, because one of these we're going specifically because of the flavor. Ken and I are. Do you want to start with that one? Should we start with the one that we're just
Yes, dreading.
dreading? Okay.
Dreading?
Yeah. Okay. Can you introduce it?
So the first one we have is Papalo. And this is one description I saw is tastes like cilantro, but with a more pronounced soapy taste.
Yes.
So I don't know
Yeah.
I'm the only one in this group that enjoys cilantro.
To me, that sounds like, I don't know why you'd want to grow that. It just might as well just chew on a bar of soap, but that's okay.
Yeah.
I have
think
seen
the
other
description
descriptions
was
says cilantro with arugula and rue. I don't know what rue tastes like, but still, I'm not a fan of cilantro, so. But I will grow it for the good of the cause.
Yeah. I want to compare, even though I don't like cilantro at all. I want to get some cilantro. We'll grow some, not as part of the grow along. We'll just have it as part of our public gardens. And I'm going to try a little bit of that. And I will try this Papalo and see if either tastes more strongly bad. So I was looking this up. So Ken, you had mentioned that you and I are the ones that don't like cilantro. And I think our viewers and listeners would have heard of this genetic variation where some of the population does believe that cilantro has a soapy flavor to it. And I once knew more about this, and then I just let that information go because I just avoid cilantro like the plague. But I thought we should see why you and I are so unique and special, I guess, along with probably some of our viewers. And so it is a genetic mutation that affects your olfactory receptor genes. And so it makes you very sensitive. So we're sensitive souls to aldehyde compounds that are in cilantro. Now plants have aldehydes. A lot of plants have aldehyde compounds in them. But this one, the same one that is in cilantro, is the one that is used in soap, which is why we think that cilantro tastes like soap, because the olfactory receptors are picking up that same compound. I'm like, well, that's lovely. Soap.
Well,
So.
I remember an article also where they said that the preference for cilantro can also be a learned behavior or a learned preference, I guess. You can train your tongue or your olfactory to like it. Ken says no.
I don't. Yeah.
Well,
maybe it has to happen when you're younger than we are.
Maybe. I will say I
So-
got a lot of bars of soap stuck in my mouth as a child. So I had older sisters that told me to say things that I really shouldn't say. So, and they thought it was
Don't
funny.
be blaming it on them.
Oh, 100%
we all know the
I
truth.
do. They admit it. They admit it.
Okay.
They know what to do to their little brother. Yes. So, okay. I'm excited. Yay.
So I think with this is
Yeah.
more heat tolerant than cilantro. Cilantro is more of a cool season. So, if you do really like cilantro, this may be you got your cilantro in the spring, and then this can take over into the summer when that cilantro starts declining and flowering and stuff. So
Yeah, it won't bolt when the temperatures get warmer in the summer months, and so.
And you will not confuse this leaf for a parsley leaf. It does not look like parsley. It's a more wider, rounder shaped leaf. So if you're planting parsley also in the garden, don't worry. These are distinctly different.
Yeah, they're not even in the same family. That's why I was curious as to why, cilantro and then this plant also have that that soapy flavor. I thought maybe they're, in the same family, and they're not. And so very distinct, different looking plants. So.
Yeah, and I haven't found a really good description of the size. It kind of varies, but several places list it getting several feet tall. So that may be something to consider when you're placing this, is the height, and you can pinch it back and stuff to make it a little more bushy. But I've seen some places say 3 feet tall, some places say 5 feet tall. So,
Mhm.
and if it flowers, it has seeds, like dandelion type seeds. So
Yes.
it may potentially reseed as well.
Yep.
Yep.
And
It's a direct
if
sow
yes,
plant as well. One of ours.
and if you're furiously writing notes right now, afraid that you might miss something, don't worry. On the registration, we'll have these
Yes.
growing requirements for it. So sun, shade, yeah, hardy, not hardy, all stuff like that, spacing. So that information will be on the registration.
Okay, what's next?
I think this next one is something Ken has grown last year. Ken, what are we looking at here when it comes to something a little bit more holiday themed, which I know that's your speed is the holiday time frame.
Yeah, so this is a sweet pepper called Christmas tree. So this is it is an edible pepper, but it's very ornamental as well. So this is a kind of I guess you would call a dwarf pepper. It gets 12, 18 inches tall. And when the peppers grow, pop up a picture. The peppers grow upright. It's got a very nice ornamental look. When they first start developing, they're kind of a creamy white color, then they'll go into yellow. Sometimes they get purple streaks on them, and they'll get into orange and red. And you can eat them at any stage, but when they get really nice, dark, kind of deep red color, they are incredibly sweet. I think it's probably the sweetest pepper I've ever had. So when you eat them a little earlier, they taste more like a green pepper. But this is one we grew last year. And I think we will probably grow this forever and ever, as long as we can find seeds.
I like the idea of a really sweet pepper. My whole family we're very excited about this one because we really like that sweet pepper flavor. And it is really pretty. Like I might honestly, we've downsized our garden, and so I've been thinking about putting some of these unique to us plants in our ornamental landscape. This might be one of them. We'll see.
Yeah, I think this would fit in well with an more edible landscaping.
Yeah,
What about in a
the ornamental.
container?
Yeah, I think it would be fine. We grew ours in the ground, but I think it's not a terribly big plant. So as long as I mean, I wouldn't put it in a really small pot, but if you get a decent sized pot, it should be fine in there.
I cut you off, Chris. What were you going to say?
Um,
Sorry.
oh,
Okay.
wasn't important. Just fluttered off like
Sorry.
like a wisp of cloud.
Yeah.
No worries.
This does need to be started early. It would not be a direct sow. This is 55 days to maturity, but that is, of course, after you plant them out, after the risk of frost is passed. And so you would start your peppers indoors. I think usually the package says 4 to 6 weeks, but I like to make them a little more robust. And I usually start them about 6 to 8 weeks. I'm going to care for them a little longer. How about you guys?
It depends on when I get my act together. Usually, usually you do more that 6 to 8 week.
Yeah.
But because this is a little quicker turnaround, I think if you did 4, 6 weeks, you'd be fine still.
Okay. I thought of it. So the thing that I like about this is that you have a sweet ornamental pepper, whereas the ornamental peppers that are sold as like annuals, bedding plants, those I think they're spicy. They might be sweet. I don't know. I've never tried them, but I've never been interested in wanting to eat them because they're usually skinny and not as appealing. But this thing, not only does it look nice, it just looks like a good pepper, like something you would get at a grocery store.
Yeah, I do not like spice. Like I'm a true Midwesterner. Like black pepper is spicy, right? And so I like these sweet peppers, so I've never tried.
Mhm.
I don't dare to try the ornamental peppers, but I think you're right. I think generally they are labeled as being on the more spicy side. And the upright ones, generally, at least that's what I have in my brain. Like to me, that says spicy, but I like that this is. All right. Can't wait. That'll be fun. Thanks, Ken. All right. Can we talk about the melon? I think this one might have been one that I advocated for, something fierce. So this is the Kajari melon. And so this one's supposed to be easy to grow. We'll try to find a picture to put in here. None of us have grown this one before. What drew me to it, we're just going to be honest, is it is gorgeous, like the coloration is like an orange and cream and white stripe is what it looks like, kind of going around the melon. And I just want to see that ripen in my garden. And so that was what made me click on the link. And now just reading about it is that it is billed as having world-class flavor. It's sort of like a honeydew type of melon. And so it was supposed to have that sweet flavor with the green, the fruit inside. And so I like that. I think people expect the orange kind of cantaloupe insides, and I like having that surprise with that green. And so going to be nice, if we get some out of it, it'll be really lovely to cut into. Smaller fruits, that was appealing. I'm going to try to trellis this up and grow it off of the ground and really make it more of a vertical element in the landscape. I do that sometimes with some of our smaller vining fruits. So that's my intention. Not too bad. Full sun, direct seed, pretty easy to grow. What am I missing?
Yeah, I say I haven't found anything on how big it gets, but since it's a cucurbit, I would assume you're going to need some space unless you're going to trellis it. I think the fruit get about 2 pounds. So yeah, depending on how strong those vines are, you may or may not need to support those fruit when they're developing, if you do it trellised.
It also notes that it produces a lot. And so I really find that appealing when I'm growing. Some of the melons and squash that we grow don't overly produce, for as much space as they take up in a garden. I really like to make sure that they're going to produce well, both to, feed the family, but then also to donate. That's a kind of a pillar of extension, as we like to help support local food banks and people in need. And so I want to make sure that was one of the appealing aspects of this one, is that it seems to produce a lot. And so we can have plenty to share.
The revenge of the lemon cucumber strikes back again, the return.
I think I advocated for that one too. Okay.
Yes.
I'm on brand.
Hey, I love melons. I loved cucumbers last year too. And well, we'll see what happens to my melon.
Until you didn't.
Yeah.
This one I believe also, and I'm having a hard time remembering where I saw it, but I was reading about it. And I think it also said that it was a smaller seed, like seed heart. Like it didn't have so many seeds in the middle. It was more edible fruit than, sometimes you cut into melons or whatever, and it's just like all seeds. And you're like, well, this was, disappointing. I think this one has supposedly has more flesh that you can eat versus the seeds. We'll see.
Only one way to find out.
Yeah. I like that attitude, Ken. I like it. All right. What's up next? We've got quite a few things, so I'm going to keep us moving. We've got more this year to choose from. So let's keep going.
So I think the next one on the list is black Krim tomato. I think it was another one of your choices, wasn't it?
Wasn't it the description of the flavor that you seem to like? Is that right, Emily? It's described as smoky.
Yes. I don't know what that is going to be like when, like in fruition, but yes, it was described as having like a smoky flavor. Tomatoes have a wide range of flavors, and I really enjoy trying them all. I didn't always like tomatoes, but I have really grown to love them. They're one of my favorite things to grow and to eat out of the garden. And so the smoky flavor, I don't know what that means in terms of tomato. So we're going to give it a shot. Also, the color doesn't hurt it. It's this really beautiful kind of purple tomato color. And so red purple fruit. So I like a dark, rich colored tomato. So
Full of anthocyanins.
Yeah. Yep. So this one we would also have to start indoors, start early and grow out. So we'll get those seeds shipped out to people, start them, right alongside those peppers. I always start them all together because I don't have time to just time out different plantings. So I just plant everything at the same time, and works pretty well. These are indeterminate tomatoes. We should make a note to folks that these are indeterminate, which means that the plants will continue to grow and grow and grow. throughout the growing season. So you'll need ample space and support likely for them, or you'll have to do some hard pruning, which is possible, but oftentimes is not done. So I guess based on experience, just recommend always planning on supporting your indeterminate tomatoes versus counting on yourself to prune them.
Yeah.
I like, yeah. I like indeterminate tomatoes too, though, because they do produce throughout the year. It's not just one harvest. That works for some folks, but this one will continue to produce throughout the year. And so you'll probably, if it's a good year for tomatoes and we have success with these, we'll all be tired of them by the end of the season. But then we can donate them. But I don't know. I make salsas with our tomatoes, and so I know this is not a paste. This is a slicing tomato, so it's going to be a little. It says it's going to be a little more juicy than you would have with your like paste tomatoes, but I don't mind, especially if it has a smoky flavor. Like that's going to be. I don't know. I'm really excited about that. I'm just gonna hold on to that excitement until I get to try them. We'll see.
This doesn't taste like smoke at all.
I want to be looking at a campfire when I'm eating my tomatoes.
That's what I feel about coffee too. It's like, this tastes
Yeah.
like burned wood. I don't want it.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Jet fuel or
Mhm.
nothing. So, okay. Anything, do you guys have anything to add about the tomato? You got any thoughts? No?
No, I'd say
think-
save the seed for this, and then you can plant a lot of these. You can save seed of a lot of these crops that we're talking about this year, and use them year after year.
Yeah, so probably, assuming get you in trouble. I think assume probably most people have grown tomatoes before, so and are familiar with what they're going to get themselves into.
So by my count, that wraps up our edible portion. Yeah.
Quasi
Next one's
edible.
edible.
I know. It's
Everything's edible, as Ken would say.
oh dear.
Everything's edible once.
Yes. But so
Okay.
the vegetables, the fruits, things that we'll
Mhm.
be growing here, they are, yes, definitely edible. They are also good looking. I think we've picked, as usual, a lot of the criteria is these have to be aesthetically pleasing vegetable crops. The next ones in our list here are also sometimes edible. There's a few of them that you've definitely seen us actually eat on the show before.
Mhm.
And then a few of the others, they're pretty. We want pretty plants also growing alongside our vegetable crops. So this all too familiar one here is backed by popular demand that we all taste tested last year. And then as we felt the tingling and the numbing sensation throughout our mouths, professed that was, not bad. We're all going to be growing toothache plant as part of the grow along. And so if people want to see what it's like for people to actually consume the flower buds of the toothache plant, you can check out that episode down below in the show notes. But yeah, toothache plant should be a fun one to grow. I've tried to grow it a few times. I've not been successful. When I get to that seed starting stage, I think this is the one where we might have smaller seeds than a lot of the
Yeah.
others. So we'll all have to get our, magnifying glasses out when we start sorting seeds into packets for sending out. But these are probably the smaller seeds. So don't sneeze when you're planting these.
Yep. I take back what I said because I forgot about the toothache plant. Yeah, we'll have a few actual small seeds, and this would be one of them. That I'm excited to do this because some of the things that I'm growing too, I guess the criteria is so I can give my kids different experiences. And I think that we talked about it in that episode, how it is just really neat what nature can do. And so, yeah, if you want to share the experience of having excess drool with your family, this would be the plant for you.
That's right. Check those salivary glands, make sure they work.
Yep. And this is one where I think we've kind of figured out it needs a lot more moisture, at least for me, than I was giving it, which is why I think my plants struggled last year at times. So make sure you keep up with watering, especially if you have it in a pot. Likes more moist conditions.
Now, would this one benefit from a heat mat? Because I know like peppers and tomatoes, all those also benefit from heat mats. Do you start your seeds with heat mats, Ken? Or are they just in the house on their own?
They're just in the house on their own.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't use it. I'm trying to think. I'm not even sure we have a heat mat at home to use, but I mean, our seeds are in our dining room, so it's relatively warm. We're not in a basement or anything.
So I'm in the basement, so I'll usually I
Yeah.
try to add a little bit of bottom heat when I got some of my summer veggies seeds going.
Yeah.
Only for seeds sprouting. Once they sprout, take that heat mat off of there.
So it kind of looks
Light
like,
will help. Oh, go ahead,
yeah,
Ken.
ideal temperature is 70 degrees, and they're a surface, so they need that light to germinate.
All right. Toothache plant.
Pretty, you can eat it. Another
is.
pretty you can eat is I think you grew this one last year, right, Emily? The dark purple opal basil.
We did. Yes, we grew this with some of our master gardeners, and I'm excited to share it with everybody because it's beautiful. It has this really dark foliage, so that is often marketed as something for cut flower bouquets, and it certainly adds just like fragrance. It's a basil, and so it still has that really lovely, at least I think, basil aroma to it. It just, when you cut it and you like bump it, you know, like in a cut flower bouquet, you smell it right away. It smells like basil. And there were many a time when we were making bouquets and people would make comments about the aroma. So it has that. And it is grown for, like I said, that dark foliage. This is a cut and come again plant. Like the more you harvest, the more you're going to get off of it, which is really appealing. But it's also edible. Like it doesn't have I don't think it has as strong as a basil flavor as some of the other cultivars, but that's okay if you're not a huge fan of basil. You can get a little bit of it without, you know, going overboard. And so yeah, this is edible and beautiful. The flowers are not when it does flower, we let it flower at the end of the season. They're more petite. They're shorter in stature than some of the other cultivars, like the green basils that we've grown. Now that is just anecdotal. I haven't done a lot of comparisons, but it just seemed like they were more in the style of like a smaller flower head that fit nicely into a bouquet. And so I am excited. I insisted that we grow this again just because I wanted to, and I thought everybody should have the experience of it. Or at least have the option. You all can choose if you want to grow it or not, if you like basil, but really, really lovely.
Did you all direct seed this or started indoors?
So that's funny you ask, because I'm trying to remember. I think we did. I don't think we started this. Typically, I do start my basil early, and I think we direct seeded it into our raised beds. And it's just where they're at is warm anyways. It's kind of an alleyway, and it just is a really warm site, and basil does like that warmth. And so I think that really helped support the growth of it. I should have looked back at my notes. I apologize.
I think people usually do both. I usually start mine indoors just to get a jump, but I think basil is one you can get away with starting or direct seeding if you don't have the capability to start indoors.
I have direct seeded at home. I know that. I can't remember what we did last year though for our growing bed. So yeah, maybe we'll do both. Maybe we could divide and conquer. Some of us started early and some of us direct seed, see how it goes. Pinch, I would say too, so with some of these cut flowers too, you'll see like pinching back encourages reblooming, but it also keeps your plants more dwarf size. And so some of the plants, like these can get really big too, but if you just keep harvesting it, it does kind of keep the size in check. And so I would encourage people to think about where they're growing it and what kind of involvement they're going to have or how they're going to use these plants, and the regularity with which they're going to prune on the plants size wise. You could get it away with a smaller site if you're really going to keep pruning. Otherwise, give it a little bit of space because they can get pretty big.
Yeah. On to the next one.
Yeah.
So the next one we've got is a Celosia. I think, Chris, this was your selection, wasn't it?
It was purely for the name.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty too. Actually, I think we had talked about this as we were selecting these plants. Like if we were designing a bouquet, this would it would blend really well with the dark purple opal basil because this is also like a deep maroon burgundy colored leafed celosia. It has like it's a very kind of dark red wine color to the leaves, and then it has these flower spikes on it that are a bright rosy red color. So, um, do not credit me as someone who's good at designing bouquets, but I picked this celosia because of the name, and the name is Megapunk. I love it. I'm going to grow this one. So this is a very similar type, I think, growing habit, probably growing conditions as you would get with your basil. And it provides some of the similar types of color as the basil would too, except for those really bright red flower stalks. I think are really going to stand out amongst that darker foliage. So I had to go with Megapunk on this one. We were looking at a lot of different Celosias also.
Mhm.
So yeah, I guess people have their own favorite Celosias out there. Feel free to comment below. But this is you can get me with a good name, so you got me.
So Celosia is a really interesting species. So the one that you chose, Chris, is like a wheat variety. It's more of like it could also be like a plume, although generally when plume is identified as the bloom type, it's a little bit bigger. These are a little more, the blooms are a little more petite than what I generally think of as the plume, but they're that same kind of form. There's also the coxcomb celosia. So if people are like thinking back to maybe a plant of, their childhood or whatnot, like those have been very popular, like a heritage type of plant. They're still very popular, but those have like that brain kind of form. Coxcomb is another descriptor that has been used for that bloom. Those get much bigger. These are more, there are more of them and they are smaller and easier to use in a bouquet. But yes, this color looks really, really exciting and really amazing. You said you weren't a floral designer. I bet you could come up with a really cool design with them because like that contrast, like that really dark, good design has good contrast with within it. And so I don't know. I just see this being grown. We've got a couple of plants that I could see this getting paired with, but with the basil and with some like pink hues, like some pink blooms that are a little bit more robust, and it could be more of the focal point, and these would be kind of the fillers and like kind of frame it. But just a moody bouquet. Like I think that is going to be really cool. Where it's just like I'm in a mood. Like I love flowers, but like kind of don't mess with me bouquet, and
Yes.
I'm here for that. I mean, it's Megapunk. She's got to have a little attitude. So
That's right. I think this will also holds up even dried, and
yes,
so
yes,
you can use this in a really neat late summer bouquet or a fall bouquet. There's a lot of interesting things that you can do with the foliage and the flower plumes on this one.
yes, and it is recommended that you start Celosia indoors. And so about 6 weeks, again around the same time we're planting the tomatoes and the possible basil and the peppers, you would want to start this inside as well. It's a warm season crop, and so
Yeah, you can't start outdoors, and that's usually 2 weeks after your last frost. I think I start for this one. It's 12 to 14 weeks to bloom. So keep that in mind if you're going to put it direct seed.
Yeah, and then I
good
guess
choice, though, Chris.
Well, thank you. And as people are choosing these plants from our registration page, just know you don't have to do all of them. And maybe you do need to select based upon, do you have the space necessary to start seed indoors? Or, are you only going to be able to sow outside direct seed? Just be mindful of that as you pick these plants out. So we want you to be successful.
All right, can we talk about a plant that I think we could pair with this moody bouquet?
Do it.
Talk about our cosmos. So we chose a cosmos, another one that's probably familiar to many people listening or watching. It's kind of a heritage plant. Cosmos have been around for a very long time, very popular. The one we chose though is called Seashells Mix, and so it has really unique petals on it. And so typically you would think of Cosmos in like this open-faced flower. Well, this has that, except the petals are rounded. They have like more of a vase shape to them. Really, really unique kind of shape to them. So I've never grown this one. I've just grown traditional Cosmos before. These are, Cosmos are another cut and come again. They get really tall, really long stems, give you a lot of blooms for, per plant. But I think I just am envisioning these cosmos stuck into a bouquet, and just like the bright magenta colors that we've got here. So it's white, kind of a light pink, and then a magenta. We don't know what you'll get. It's a mix. And so when you sign up for this one, just know that we're not guaranteeing you all of the colors. We don't know what you're getting. We don't know what we'll be getting. Hopefully you'll get a little bit of each, but I could just see these bigger size blooms. They're usually 3 inches or so, tucked in and amongst the more delicate flowers of the basil and or the celosia against that really dark foliage. I think will be really cool.
Yeah, the petals remind me a little bit of think of like a foxglove flower. You just this long tubular, but this is
Yeah,
just the petals all around. So
that's
yeah,
a good description.
excited to see what they look like in person.
Yeah.
With Cosmos too, you can start them early. I usually don't. You can direct sow after the last frost. They grow pretty quickly, establish pretty quickly, pretty easy to grow. So if you don't want to do any indoors, starting seeds indoors, or you just run out of room in your space, this could be one. That's what I sometimes do, is I just run out of room. I intend on starting it early, and then I don't have enough space. I'm like, well, you can be direct seeded. So that's what usually ends up happening. But again, you could start it early. They transplant just fine, but you don't have to. And they're really lovely for pollinators too. Like mine always have so many insects on them, butterflies, bees in particular, but just really a nice addition to a garden. So
Yeah, I think I'm. Oh, good.
go ahead. Oh, I would just say they are larger though. They get pretty big.
Mhm.
And so just be aware of that. 5 foot or so.
Yes, to that point, to both of your points actually right there, pollinators and getting a little bit larger. I think I know where I'm going to put this in my pollinator patch, where I have several native plants that sort of grow and intermingle and intertwine. Because being a Cosmos bipinnatus usually has a much more kind of delicate, fine textured foliage and stems, and so kind of thinking maybe a little bit of extra support by having some surround plants around it so that it doesn't get flattened by the wind or my dogs, might probably help this plant out a little bit, because I've always really loved like Cosmos bipinnatus because of that fine texturedness. It reminds me a lot of like the tick seed coreopsis, like the very fine textured leaves. I've always really loved that, those like, very delicate looking stems and leaves and structure to that plant. So I do enjoy me some Cosmos bipinnatus.
Well, I think you'll like seashells.
Mhm.
All right. What else do we have?
We got
Oh,
one more, Zinnia.
yes. Last but certainly not least.
So this one is Old Mexico. I don't remember. Was this a joint decision? I don't remember if anybody.
Thanks.
I have no
We went
memory
back
of
and
selecting
forth.
this, but I'm here for it.
We had the Zinnia page open. We were going back and forth. We had one Zinnia species selected, but then we all kind of looked at Old Mexico and said, "No, I really like that one. That's a good one."
Yes, this one. So the description of the flowers is a burnished copper tipped with gold. So it's kind of got this reddish orangish center with yellow tips on the petals there. A nice kind of open flower. I mean, to me, then again, if you're going to compare it to another plant like blanket flower, looks similar to
Yeah.
the blanket flower.
Mm-hmm. And All-American selection winner in 1962. So it's been around for a while.
No.
It's a good
Oldie but a
mainstay.
goodie.
That's it. Yes. And this is one of those where it's usually recommended that you sow this outside instead of starting indoors. So a really good one for filling in some of that extra space in the garden after you've gotten it all planted out.
This one is also just smaller in stature. So zinnias come in a lot of different sizes now. There are some that are more compact and more like meant more for the front of a planting bed, like a border style. And then there's the ones that are more for cut flowers, which are really tall and put on these really long stems. This, I think, is more of a compact, kind of in between. I would say in between size. It says 1 foot to 1.5 foot. So not overly large, but will do, cut and come again as well. So the more you harvest, the more blooms you'll get. And so you can grow it in the garden as a cut flower, or you could grow it in like a perennial bed and just harvest blooms off of it. So you have blooms all year long. Like that is one strategy that you can employ to just make sure that you always have something really bright and sunshiny growing in the garden, is to harvest these flowers, and they'll produce more. But a little smaller than your kind of like heirloom, or maybe the more traditional zinnias that we have grown in the past. These are also really tolerant though of like dry conditions too. So we've had some plants that were like, well, we might have to provide supplemental water. Zinnias are hardy, they are tough. Of course, if we have a severe drought, we'll have to provide some supplemental water, but they're nothing like, I'm thinking of like the year I grew celery, where it was like really dry, and celery really likes water. And so I was out there like all the time. My zinnias next door to it in the garden were doing just fine, so, without the supplemental water.
The other thing I like about this zinnia, and I like about all of these particular types of zinnias, the single flower zinnia. I don't know why the double flowered zinnia, I'm just like, man, that's a lot of flower. Like it's a little, you're a little over the top there, zinnia, but this one is the solitary, the single flower. It's not a double flower type. I just like those. I like seeing that open disc. Something about that I enjoy.
Butterflies like them too.
There you go. Part butterfly, the Mothman.
I like them all. I'll just go on record. Next year we might have a double zinnia, because there's really
That's
cool
fine.
colors that are coming out. So
there is, yes.
Really,
and if they got a cool name like Megapunk, hey, I'd grow that zinnia.
Yes. Yeah. They do need, I think they do need to work on some of the names of the zinnias. I think they're just resting on their laurels as it being a zinnia. They're not overly creative. Like giant coral. I grew that one last year. I mean, sure, but it's not Megapunk.
We can do better.
We can do better. We need some seashells, or we need some Megapunk, or some Old Mexico. Make me,
like
romance me with it.
Start some zinnia breeding.
There you go.
That's year 3 of the grow along.
Spoiler alert. We're breeding
Start breeding
zinnias.
your own. Yes. Zinnias, hostas, daylilies, you name it. We're going to start breeding them.
Well, that's it. That's it. Well, we have 9. And that you guys was us showing restraint. we had a lot more, but that's okay.
It was a long list. Yeah. So, well, that was a lot of great information about the different plants that are going to be available to you for our grow along for this year in 2025. Now, we would love to offer seed to everybody, but we only have so much to give away. So the registration numbers are limited. So once this episode drops, the registration will be open. Get there as soon as you can. As Emily said, though, if you're driving, wait till you get home before you start doing any of that registration stuff. And we'll send you seed to get it started indoors or outdoors, depending upon which ones you order and your setup. Well, the Good Growing Podcast is a production of University of Illinois Extension, edited this week by Ken Johnson. Hey, thanks, Ken, for editing today's podcast. Do appreciate it. And thank you, Emily, for hanging out with us today and chatting all things good growing, grow along. Should roll right off the tongue by now. It's
been my pleasure. And yeah, we can keep working on the name, but I really appreciate having everybody participate. It's going to be, I mean, it's the beginning of February right now, but growing season's coming up quick. So I'm getting excited.
Yes. Thank you both. I'm looking forward to this. And I'll have to find a place to squeeze this stuff into my garden, but I think I can do it. And let's do this again next week.
Oh, we shall do this again next week. This warm weather that we experienced last week in January and February has really thrown me for a loop. So, I'm already like getting ready, itching to get out in the garden. So we'll have a garden bite for you next week. Ken's got to teach some farmers how to grow tree fruit or something, tasty, delicious stuff like that. Important things. So, Ken, we'll miss you, but we'll have a garden bite for you next week, folks. So listeners, thank you for doing what you do best, and that is listening, or if you're watching us on YouTube, watching. And as always, keep on growing.
All right. I gotta get that registration done.